normally hear that in the reverse order, the law of supply and demand. But as true to unity, we mix things up just a little bit. I'm talking today about some of the things, kernels of truth in Emily Cady's book, Lessons in Truth. And I want to quote from that book. She says, "One of the unerring truths or facts in the universe is that there is already provided a lavish abundance for every human want. In other words, the supply of every good always somewhere awaits the demand. Another truth or fact is that the demand must be made before the supply can come forth to fill it." That kind of turns things around a little bit for me. The fact that I can demand something before it's even there. To recognize, excuse me, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my technology here. That's it. I got a bulletin saying right in front of my notes that this is recorded. So here we go. She says, "To recognize and affirm these two statements is the whole secret of understanding faith. Not naive or gullible faith, but faith based on understanding. Faith based on understanding of the way the law of demand and supply works is not airy-fairy. When it's based on an understanding of spiritual law, faith is very scientific." And she goes on, faith, and this is a quote that Charles Fillmore uses a lot too. "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith takes hold of the substance of the thing hoped for and brings into evidence or visibility the things not seen." And that was one of my first big surprises in Unity when I heard Charles Fillmore's description of what substance is. Substance is what, when it comes into materialization, becomes form. So substance is possible forms, possibility of everything coming into form. And this is the law that Jesus used, because for him, there was no asking or pleading. He was simply complying with the unfailing law, which is compelled to work. It's a law. It must work. So we make the demand in order to bring forth the things we desire. We make the demand. And Paul Hasselbeck points out that the word desire is a combination of the prefix "d" and the word "sire," which means to father, so that our desires are coming from the Father. Cady says, "Desire in the heart is always God tapping at the door of your consciousness with his infinite supply, a supply which is forever useless unless there be a demand for it. Before you are conscious of any desire for more happiness or fullness of joy, the great Father-Mother heart has decided them for you. It is this desiring that you feel and think it is only yourself. It is the first approach of the thing itself striking you that makes you desire it or even think of it at all." But some of us have been trained, have we not, to think of ourselves as selfish if we go around asking for things and expecting things, let alone demanding things. Was that the way you were brought up? When I was a child, we used to have to go to Sunday drives on Sunday afternoons, and we hated it, but we always asked, "Can we have an ice cream cone?" And the reply was always the same. It was always, "Maybe, if you don't ask." How can you win? But this contradicts what Cady is saying, doesn't it? She says we wouldn't want it if it wasn't already supplied and waiting for it. That ice cream cone was already supplied at that store waiting for me to demand it. Therefore, to not accept everything we desire is a rejection of spirit, which wants to itself express itself into the world through and as the things we want. Always waiting. I have a reputation for doing it all myself. And that's not all bad. I like the fact that I chip in and help most of the time. But now I'm beginning to realize where that need to do it all myself came from. Because again, I can hear my mother's voice in my head saying, them that asks don't want, them that don't ask don't, no, them that asks don't get, them that don't ask don't want. And I think she was trying to be witty or amusing, but the subconscious message to a child is, you ain't never going to have anything given to you. Go out there and work for it and do it all yourself. Anybody else brought up that way? How much some of us have to overcome in order to accept and embrace what teaching is now telling us. I suspect you may have something lurking in your subconscious. Just take a moment and think about that. Were you taught that everything you desire is achievable? Or were you taught that life is a struggle and you're probably going to have to settle for a lot less than you deserve? Yes? You know, normally in real life, when we think of the law of supply and demand, which it is called in real life, we think in terms of economics, of our market system. The law of supply and demand is this. When an item is scarce, but many people want it, the price of that item will rise. Conversely, if there's a larger supply of an item than consumer demand, the price will fall. So in order to keep the price up, the suppliers and producers create just enough product to fulfill the demand, or they promote and advertise in order to create more demand. Did you know that advertising is what makes you think you've longed all your life for something you never heard of till just now? The law of demand and supply is different. There is no price for spiritual supply. It is freely given already. So normally, if we want something that doesn't exist, we need to create it for ourselves. We invent it. And we do that by accessing that eternal supply that is already given. You know, everything is supplied, even ideas. That's how inventions come into being. Knowing that somewhere it already exists in waiting for us, and we need to go into universal mind and find it. My Auntie Dodo is the person who first introduced me to New Thought philosophy. She was at a very good place in her life, lived in California, recently remarried, had a beautiful home up in Pacific Palisades that they're redecorating. She started her own business and it was doing very well. And she's had herself a cute little Carmen Ghia convertible. If you don't know what Carmen Ghia is, it used to be a trendy little sports car. And the license plate on her car read India with a Y, Y-N-D-I-A. And she wouldn't explain that to anyone. It was her little secret. But the day she took me to my first New Thought experience, and I was blown away and instantly knew that this is what I wanted to do. She shared her secret with me. India stood for, you're not doing it alone. She was quite conscious of the awaiting supply responding to her demand. Every invention, every creation is tapping into the infinite and discovering that which already exists. And the spiritual law of demand and supply doesn't make judgments about our inventions and creations. It creates whatever we tell it to. That's why you may have noticed in recent years, we've had some inventions that might have caused raised eyebrows in the infinite mind, but God invented anyway. Things like ice cube mix, tricycle kickstands, dehydrated water, fireproof matches, reversible sandwich bread, and disposable garbage bags. And people bought them. That's the power of advertising, making you think you need stuff you don't even know exists. So how about we turn away from the law of supply and demand? That's just something economists made up. Someone once said to me that if you line up all the economists in the world, they will still point in every direction. Economics is a construct of the consciousness of the physical plane. The truth is that everything that ever has been or ever will be invented already exists in infinite mind. Metaphysics, meaning beyond physics, and quantum physics tell us that ultimately, once a physical subject is broken down into its component parts, elements, molecules, atoms, and subatomic particles, ultimately it's all one stuff. It's actually energy. And that energy can be arranged and rearranged to create anything. Did you ever do the experiment where you take a piece of aluminum foil and crumple it up and make something of it? And then the instruction is to unfold it and crumple it up and make something different of it. That's the universal stuff, energy, constantly being arranged and rearranged. Deepak Chopra talks about the dreams that stuff is made of. We think that things don't exist if they don't exist in this space at this time, but they do. If we wish to experience them, we must bring them into materialization out of non-space, non-time. And we cannot do that by working hard. Well, not by just working hard. We do that by making a demand upon all there is and then working hard. Everything is already given. Before you asked, have I given unto you? But you must ask. That is the law of demand and supply. The whole ocean is there for us to enjoy, but we have to go to it. Yes? The mountains are there waiting for us to admire them and climb them if we wish. The meadow of wildflowers offers up its beauty to saints and sinners alike, to whoever will go to admire that. All the drinking water we'll ever need is available to us, but we have to go to the river to get it. And the river gives itself freely to all, whoever demands water from it. And it gives to us in whatever measure it is demanded. It doesn't care if we just kneel down and scoop out a mouthful of fresh water. It doesn't care if we scoop out a bucketful to take back to our campsite. And it doesn't care if we dam it up and provide enough water for a whole city. But we have to make the demand. In the metaphysical sense, supply is unlimited, and we can demand as much as we want of it, but we can't hoard it, because hoarding is a denial of the abundance, is it not? We've probably all met a hoarder who thinks they're laying up good so that they will never run out, so that they're always supplied. But what they are actually doing is creating a shortage because of the fear in their mind. That's not abundance. That's a lack consciousness. And that's what creates the apparent shortage of anything, damming it up in one place. You've probably heard that the way monkeys are trapped is to put food inside a bottle with a narrow neck. The monkey reaches inside the bottle and grasps the food, but he can't get his hand back out of the bottle because he won't release the food. We must let all the goodness and all the supply of the universe flow freely and circulate through us. We'd stop the flow when we won't let go. We cannot open our arms to receive the good if we're clutching our arms in fear around the little bit that we already have. That's the principle behind tithing or any giving. You must let go of what you have, right? If you want a hug, you must let a hug go. If you want love, you must give love. And at Unity, Vancouver Island now, we tithe meticulously, 10% of everything. When I first joined Unity, they had been tithing 10% of the Sunday donations in the months in which they would make a profit. And I said, whoa, as soon as I came, no, we need to take 10% of those Sunday donations off the top, and that's our tithe. And then a few years later, Thomas DeShooter, now Reverend Thomas DeShooter, came and joined our board, and he said, I think we need to pledge 10% of everything, whether it's book sales, whether it's coffee income, whether it's a grant, whatever we receive, we meticulously tithe 10%. And we are very, very abundant. Now we're about to make an offer to purchase $1 million building cash. I know that doesn't make sense, that in order to give more, in order to have more, you have to give more. But those of us who have made that choice in our personal finances can attest to the effectiveness of it. It's like the farmer who returns the best 10% of her crop to the earth for the next year. The best 10%. And tithing is returning 10% to do God's work, if you will. So the law of demand and supply says we must make a demand upon the infinite, and we must make that demand with faith. Now, you might think you're making a demand with an affirmation, but an affirmation without faith is not a demand. It's a request, a suggestion, a hope. And sometimes it's even a step backward. If your affirmation actually creates doubt in your mind instead of faith. Did you ever do that? Affirmations are good, but you have to believe them. You stand in front of a mirror and say, I am the most beautiful woman in the world. Instantly, there's a little voice over that says, oh yeah, look at that nose. Or I'm going to win the lottery. Oh yeah, you know what the odds are? We must make our affirmations believable, and we have to keep saying them until our belief has turned to absolute faith. In the Bible, one of the great teaching parables is the story of the widow who came to the prophet Elisha in great distress. She had been left destitute by the death of her husband, and her creditors were pushing her. And according to Talmudic law, she was required to forfeit her 2 sons to pay for her debt. So she came to Elijah in distress, and Elijah asked her, what have you in the house? What he was really asking her is, what have you in your consciousness? What's in your mind? And she replied, I have only 1 pot of oil. This only indicated that she was centered in the awareness of poverty. To her, the 1 pot of oil was a symbol of lack, a demonstration of her lack. It could have been a symbol of supply, but to her, it was a consciousness of lack, and that cut her off from the divine flow. She was stuck in onlyness. So to continue the story metaphorically, Elisha sent her to the neighbors for more pots. And when he did that, what he was doing metaphysically was actually asking her to go to neighboring thoughts, if you will, to expand and increase her awareness to embrace new thoughts. So she poured the oil into the pot, from her own 1 pot into all the neighbors' pots, and it filled them all. And when all the neighbors' pots were filled, the oil stopped. Had she brought even more pots from the neighbors, there would have been more oil. You have to make a demand. You have to make a demand. upon the eternal supply. If you don't bring your pot, you can't be given oil. At my installation ceremony in Kamloops, we had a bit of a ceremony, and we had originally thought about having a banquet, but we talked it over, and some people felt they couldn't afford a banquet. So we decided upon a no-host dinner at a local restaurant so that everyone could have what they felt they could afford for dinner. And people came, and I remember one woman coming and ordering simply a side salad and a glass of water. And I remember one gentleman coming in and ordered 2 beers to start with. Then he had soup, salad, steak, baked potato, dessert, and a scotch. And while we were eating, someone went to the desk and paid for all our meals. And I thought, what an immaculate demonstration of making a demand upon the infinite supply. The woman who had a fear-based lack, felt she was almost destitute, couldn't afford anything, couldn't be given much at all. All she demanded was a glass of water and a side salad. But the man who knew that he could just keep drawing on the supply got it all. And for the person who paid, there must have been some frustration that they could not supply a demand for the person who most needed it. But that's the way the law works. You have to draw upon demand, make it demand upon the infinite supply. And Dr. Ken Gordon, who was spiritual director worldwide of Centers of Spiritual Living at that time, was there. And Dr. Ken is an amazing man in the way he prays. He does what we call affirmative prayer. The Centers for Spiritual Living call it spiritual mind treatment. And it's a very specific sort of prayer. It's not, we know everything is perfect in the mind of God, or we know that we are unfolded in God's love. It's not that kind of prayer. I mean, all that is true, and that's a beautiful kind of prayer. But this is very specifically and firmly making a demand upon the infinite. He will use the words demand and command all the time. So Ken will not say, please God, let there be peace on earth. He says, I command the peace that is God. Very powerful. In New Thought, we often speculate that each of us is God projecting itself into physicality in order to have the experience of itself. And each of us is an aspect of the one God expressing. It follows then that when we have a desire for something, that is actually God nudging us to have that experience for everyone, for ourselves and for God. Therefore, that experience must be available. And perhaps every experience we have ever had has been God having that experience. And perhaps God wishes to have every possible experience in order for each of those experiences to be included in the oneness. I often have the experience of God expressing itself through music. I recall a concert where 9-year-old Timmy Chewy played Tchaikovsky's violin concerto to perfection while I sat and wept the whole time. When I hear Mozart's music or watch one of the talented folks on The Voice pour their heart and soul into a song, I know when I see a perfect gymnastics or figure skating or dance performance, I know that routine is providing God with an amazing experience. And that experience, having been received into the allness of God, completes God. Not that God has ever been incomplete, but perhaps God is evolving too. The universe is ever expanding. And I know also that even sad or tragic experiences, like the loss of a child, that's an experience without which God would not be complete. The allness would not have the opportunity to know compassion, forgiveness, resilience, healing. We can use the law of demand and supply to get everything that we want. It can be used that way. And I would suggest that if we use it that way, when we have all the things we think we want, we will want something else. And ultimately, that something else that we want is nothing less than unity, an awareness of and an expression of the unity that we already have and are, but that we keep putting aside in pursuit of stuff. We actually want the kind of unity we can only have when we have walked the mile in the other man's moccasins. The unity we can only have when we have experienced each other's pain and suffering, and when we have poured all our oil into our neighbor's pots. The supply of every good always awaits the demand. Namaste. So I'll invite you now to join me in a few minutes of quiet contemplation or meditation. And if you're comfortable,
sure you've met on mute. You did.
how did that happen? Is that better? Thank you. All right, so let's just go into a quiet meditation, allowing ourselves to be as we are. The Dalai Lama says there are 4 positions for meditation: sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. So whatever you are is just perfect. So allow your body to be supported by the chair, the floor, bed, whatever it is you're doing. And just leave your tension off the body. Allow your body to be what it is. And allow your mind now to simply be the way it is. Don't try to empty it. Don't try to clear it. It's a thinker. If it thinks, let it think, but don't pay any attention to it. Instead, pay attention to your breath, filling your body and filling your mind. Your breath bringing inspiration, inspiring, bringing spirit into both your body and your mind. And now just allow your consciousness to lightly light on the idea that there is infinite abundance standing by, awaiting our demand. And breathe. Knowing that as you breathe, you draw that infinite supply closer. And if you can identify something in that infinite supply that speaks to you, that makes you weep with joy, breathe that into your consciousness, into your mind, into every cell of your body. and release it. Just allow it to sit. And now gently scan that infinite supply, noticing things that call to you, just noticing them. Don't get hooked on them. Just notice. And with your next breath, know that you are drawing to you everything in infinite supply, which is rightfully and joyfully yours. Breathe deeper again and allow that to settle deep into your body. Breathe it right down into the soft belly. And then release. And now make your demand on the infinite supply. See it coming to you. See the brilliance of it, the light that surrounds it. The loving care that enfolds it. Lightly hold it in your hands. See it, hear it. And feel the joy of this, your great demand, being given. And it is yours. So breathing a deep, deep breath of gratitude and releasing with your breath all doubt, all questions. Breathing in your breath, and when you breathe this breath in, bring your awareness back to time and place. Begin to feel your body and your surroundings. And when you are fully ready, just allow your eyelids to flutter open.